Hello, everyone. I'm Chris, and this is Pieterjan.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Wow, you're so many people. But we heard in the presentation before that you're all good people, so this will be very easy for us, right? And also, you're from many different professional backgrounds, we've heard. You're writers, technical writers, editors, project managers, etc. That's wonderful. And many different countries, right? Like, how many? 20 different countries?
At least, yeah.
So it's like the room is full of diversity, and that's beautiful, because that's exactly what Pieterjan and me want to talk about today. And in particular, we want to talk about how to use this diversity, which we have in our teams, in our departments, and in our companies as an asset. Before we get right into this, let me give you, for a better understanding, a little background on what Pieterjan and me do the whole day and how we fill our timesheets. Well, we work at an IT company, which is called Making Waves, in a content services department, in the department called Content Services. And as the name suggests, we produce content, digital content in various language versions. This is editorial content. It can be informative. It can be inspiring. And our editors have basically three things in common. First, well, we come all from different countries. We love to write texts rather than code. And we only have a rough idea on how this whole programming and developing thing actually works. This means we're a bit different also from the rest of the company, where 70% of the employees are actually developers. So sometimes it feels we are rather a faraway planet, or even a country on its own. Let's call that Content Land for now. These are our guys working in Content Land, coming from different countries for one main reason, because our main client is visitnorway.com. It's the international tourism portal of Norway, which we produce in all kind of language versions, 14 to be precise, and also cooperate with their local markets in all these countries, from Asia and Russia to European markets, the United States and the United Kingdom. This also means we are actually really on a daily basis surrounded by different cultures, by different languages. So we thought to break down this multiverse of code, let's look at code as culture. And that's one aspect which Pieterjan will later look at. But I also want to look at our department in this solar system of developers. How do we fit in? And let's have a look at code as an environment, and in particular as an IT environment. Talking about this, yeah, before this presentation, we challenged a little bit of what we said before, that we are just a faraway planet and don't have much to do with the rest of the company. So we talked with developers, designers, content editors to see if there is something. And actually, we found quite a lot of things which we either consciously or subconsciously adapted into our own workflows. Among them, the project management software we use, the meeting setup we have, agile thinking, self-organization, face-to-face communication, a people-centric approach, and pair work. And these are a lot of things we could talk about many, many hours probably, but I think you all want to go to lunch at some point, so we'll just pick one thing which is easy to digest. And such a thing is pair work. Pair work is not only easy to digest, but also easy to implement, and it can be implemented in many, many fields. For some of you, maybe the name rings a bell, because the background lies in pair programming, which is an agile software development technique. Are there some developers in the audience who have some experience with this? Super! You have a 30 seconds break until the next slide, and for the others, I will briefly explain the concept. Basically, just imagine two developers sitting together in front of a computer. One is a so-called driver. He or she writes the code, and the other one is the observer and reviews each line of code. As a very basic concept. There are many, many reasons for which you want to do it, but overall it's to increase the quality of the code, and it also is very good for knowledge sharing and for knowledge transfer. So we in our content services department thought, like, this is really interesting, this is really inspiring. Could we use this for our own workflows somehow? And we're like, all right. We write a lot of texts, translate and localize these texts for all kind of countries and target audience in the world. But the problem is we do this in different languages, right? So if I would pair review the text of our French editor with my petit French, that would not work out too well. So we said we have to find something else where we could apply this, yeah? And we came to the conclusion, let's try with pair publishing in the CMS for visitnorway.com. Let's see how that worked out. Let's say, for example, our Spanish editor publishes an article in the CMS. While doing so, he will speak out loud what he's doing and also tells the observer what he's thinking about. At the same time, let's say the German editor takes notes, and in the beginning we said this should be silent, but the team agreed we can also ask questions and have a little chat while doing so. After this, there will be a role change, and I see the slides somehow crashed a little bit, so I will just try to tell you what's written there. They will have a role change, and they will discuss their findings and also document the outcome of habits, ideas, tips, and tricks they have found. And this is already a very good exercise for the two of them. So they can potentially learn a lot by looking at other people's habits and their own habits. Let's say this is like dancing a little bit the tango in front of the computer. And while tango is really cool, what's sometimes even better is to go into the ballroom all together and do the waltz. So at the same time, all the other team members will have done a same or similar exercise. And when they get together in a follow-up meeting, then they will talk about what they have learned while doing so. So each pair, one after the other, will share their input. And the outcome of such an exercise can be different every time, yeah? As a minimal case, I think there will be a lot of individual learnings, yeah? But also, often afterwards, we are able to redefine our guidelines, define new best practices, challenges the processes we have in place, or even come up with new ideas for the CMS we work in. So that's really useful. To sum it up, what we learned from our exercise there. We could see which tools do we use and how do we use these tools. For example, we found a nice tool to switch language versions quickly in the CMS, which not everybody knew about, yeah? Or SEO tools, or the very simple things sometimes in the CMS, how to do image search faster. It's also good to see other people's habits. And again, this is sometimes these very little things which can pile up at the end of the day, from using keyboard shortcuts and other things, or what else? Apart from this, there's also a good time for reflection and change. And when I mean reflection, it's the reflecting on your own habits. And this I mean both individually, but also reflecting on your habits as a department. Just to give you an example, we were often updating pages, and sometimes it needs larger design updates. And at some point, we were in such an exercise saying, like, this is not efficient. Let's just delete this page, create it new, and then clone it for 12 language versions. And such things which sound quite obvious, sometimes you just find out by actually working together on such things. For sure, we have a particular team set up with editors working on similar things coming from all kind of different countries. So every team is different. And if it makes sense for your team, you must, to some degree, answer yourself. But we still think, as the title says, you should give it a try. It's a really good way to step out of your own silo. And we are all experts, right? And we know how to do things. And the other people we know, they also know how to do things. But sometimes it's amazing how still people do little things a little bit different. And from these little things, we can learn a lot to make our own work more efficient. And it can grow to something much bigger as well. It's super for feedback. Feedback is sometimes a little bit stressy, emotional, when you're in some artificial situation and I have to give feedback now. This is super easy, no stress, just talk and you get your feedback and you can give the feedback on the way. And also with your team, especially when it's a new team or a very mixed team, you can easily see about which language to use, which codes you use, and get a better understanding what means what. And for sure, it's also a way of team building. Worth the investment? Yep, it costs some time, or if you work for client, it costs a little bit of extra money in the beginning. But still, we think it's really worth the investment, because you can not only increase the quality of your work, but also you'll be able to work more efficiently in the long term. And that's, I think, a very good argument for any client that they will actually save by you doing this once a while. And here I have to say, it depends for sure how often you want to do this. We as a team agreed that we do this every 4 months, or when we have a new CMS function implemented. And for sure, if a new person joins the team, then we do this more like the tango style, yeah, and it's not always needed that you waltz around with the whole team if somebody new joins. And apart from this, you can have a lot of meetings and guidelines and everything is super clear. But still things can happen, yeah? And this is also a good method to avoid the mother of all screw-ups, which is the assumption. And we can get a lot out of this. Apart from this, we really think it has no or almost no limits to use such an approach. Sometimes it's just really better, just try, fail, try again, and eventually succeed. You remember we said in the beginning, this with the languages, this is impossible with my French. Well, we said anyhow, we still write for a common goal, which is to make the users happy, to get them to Norway, to spend a lot of money. So let's just give it a try and let's do it, yeah? And the outcome was very positive. To be honest, I didn't improve my French, but now I know more about how other people, which workflows do they use, which tools do they use, how we do research, which are some tricks to overcome challenges when translating, especially source text, which is so good, and many other things, yeah? Here you can see our team at the favorite pair activity, Pyukashiki, so that's something good to start if you don't know where to start. But otherwise, I say really no limits. You can think of cross-department pair work. You can think about 2 analysts doing a report together. Maybe 2 accountants want to do invoicing together. Or maybe 2 of you want to pair up and make a pair presentation at the next SOAP conference. It's fun, really. Back to where we started. Pair work is just one example of how we can make use of the diversity we have in our teams and in our departments. And talking about diversity and code, there is a complete different way also to look at code and diversity. And Pieterjan will tell us more about it. Stage is yours.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. As Chris already mentioned, our team at Making Waves here in Krakow, we're not only surrounded by code and coding from our IT colleagues, but also within our team and on a daily basis, we're dealing with a different kind of code, more specifically cultural code. And what I mean with that, I'm going to explain to you shortly in the next few minutes. As Chris mentioned already, we create, translate, localize content for the official tourism website for Norway, Visit Norway. And most of the time it goes like this, that we receive an English text from our colleagues in the Oslo office or from the client straight away, that's possible as well. And then we transform that into different language versions, into the versions you can see here on the slide. But when doing that, when transforming the content for the other language versions, we need to bear in mind that behind every language version there is a target audience that lives in a specific market with its own context. And every context has its own perspective from looking at things and also for looking at Norway as a country. And those differences can be on many different levels. And I'm gonna give you a few specific examples on how this can influence the way we do our work every day. So, as some of you might know, Norway is a spectacularly beautiful country when it comes to nature. There are mountains, lakes, fjords, and also an awful lot of rock formations. And according to Old Norse mythology, many of those rock formations are actually mythical creatures called trolls that have turned to stone. And for example, this beautiful viewing point you see here in Norwegian is called Trolltunga, which literally means a troll's tongue, because with a bit of imagination you can see the rock formation sticking out its tongue. So with that knowledge, I'm going to let you guys guess what the next rock formation is called. Anyone who is not too shy to speak up? Any ideas? It is. It absolutely is. Even more than that. In Norwegian, this is called trollpikken, which literally means troll dick. So not just penis, but yeah, just a step further. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory why it's called like that, right? But why am I telling you this whole troll story? Well, in January of this year, Visit Norway contacted us because they wanted us to produce an article with the following title: 6 places to have great sex in Norway. And the whole idea behind the article was to create a bit of buzz around Norway being a destination to take the person you love with you to and to enjoy a romantic trip, basically. And it had to be a little cheeky, a little daring, and so that was basically the approach of Visit Norway. And we had to create 2 different language versions, both French and Italian. And obviously, when talking about love and sex, it's in different contexts, and there are different taboos, different registers. So it provided a few challenges every now and then while transforming this to other language versions. Because number 3 of the 6 was our beautiful rock we talked about a little earlier. And the problem with the title is very much in your face, as you can see. And the problem with this is when you translate this to French. In English, this title is funny, it's daring, it's a little provocative, but not extreme at all. But if you would translate this into French, it just becomes plain vulgar, and that's not a word that you really want to get your brand voice connected with. So, but we understood where Visit Norway was coming from, and we wanted to include this more daring, provocative angle. So we kind of looked for a bit of a compromise, and we ended up with this. As you can see, we used the more neutral word penis, because, well, in French, when talking about love and sex, it's not straightforward, it's not in your face, it's more beating around the bush, very subtle, a little elegant. But we tried to add some spice to the title by adding an element of rhyme there, as you can see, l'amour sans détour, so love without a detour, just go hiking, get the inspiration you need, and then go get straight to business, basically. So this was a more linguistic example of how cultural code influences our day-to-day work. A second example I want to talk about is the Scandinavian concept of cosiness. Because in Northern Europe, there's a whole culture of spending quality time with the people you love and family and friends. And this is the title of an article on Visit Norway. In Norwegian, it's called kos. And so kos is Norwegian for having a good time. It goes on, cosiness might be a Norwegian invention, but then it gets a little trickier, because the first line of the paragraph goes, the Norwegian cult of kos goes way beyond the Danes hygge. We also have a Danish version on Visit Norway. And I can imagine more people in the audience here have heard about hygge than about kos, and the Danes take a lot of pride in the concept, and they really think it's there. So if you would literally translate this, that it goes way beyond the Danes hygge, the Danes would get annoyed and maybe even offended. So our Danish editor, for those whose Danish is not so good, I added the English translation to the right. So he made a few tweaks just to make sure not to annoy anyone for his target audience. So in the title, he puts the 2 concepts next to each other. They're the same, they're on the same level. And then very cleverly, the subtitle is not that it might be a Norwegian invention. He just asks a rhetorical question, which leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And the chances of annoying someone are a lot less, basically. And also, the paragraph is a lot more, in the paragraph it's a lot more neutral. So it says it can be compared, so it doesn't go way beyond, it's just comparable. But as well, in the 3rd and 4th line, how does this work? It's this one. But the definition is probably a little broader, which is also the case, because hygge is quality time indoors, whereas kos can also be outdoors while hiking and camping, that you spend a good time with your family. So these were 2 specific examples, and I tried to make a bit of a process, a bit of a model on how we go about our work on a daily basis with this cultural code influencing us. So as I already mentioned, we receive an English text from our Oslo colleagues, and that gets sent to all the different language editors. They thoroughly read the text, and then the next step is we start sharing insights. It can be on Slack, it can be during face-to-face conversations, meetings, and that's where the magic happens, because we really dive deep into the text, we question every element, and we discuss things just to make sure that everything is well understood and that all the elements are out on the table, everything is clear. So what we basically do is inflate the text, expand it in terms of meaning, so that there are no ambiguities anymore, everything is crystal clear. And from that inflated text, the editors take the elements they need to create their language version of the original English source text. While preparing for this talk, we obviously had a lot of discussions within our team what we're going to talk about. And there was one thing we definitely wanted to mention. It's the fact that within our office, we're 12 people from a range of countries. We have our own little culture, basically, and it's a bit of an expat content culture, and that influences the way we work in two ways, both positively and negatively. Positively because we see the difference from our colleagues, from their culture towards, in comparison to our culture. It makes us better understand what is very specific about our own culture, basically. But we're doing this every day, so we can lose touch a little bit with what is specific about our market. So it's very, very important not to lose the connection and just to keep questioning everything, not to lose the connection with the market that you're writing content for, basically. All right, the takeaways from my parts. First of all, assume less, research more, as I already said. Assess every element of the content. Ask questions. As soon as you have the feeling that something is not quite right, just talk to someone, discuss it, do a Google search, just to make sure before you transform it into a different language version. Secondly, every content element needs to be assessed in terms of relevance, because sometimes it can be that things are not clear as they are, so you need to add a bit more explanation or extra content to make everything extra clear. Or the other way around, that things are just redundant and irrelevant for a certain market, and then you just leave it out, remove the content. And then finally, the last point I talked about, don't get caught in the Expat Island trap. So just stay closely connected to your target audience and try to have a good feeling about what they're involved in and what's going on there, so you can create the best possible output for the different markets. All right, this was more or less it. Chris and I have tried to inspire you guys a little bit. With the way we do our work. We look inside our team, outside our team, and then we try to use that inspiration to improve workflows, processes, and just also just the general output of what we do. And all we can say is just, if you have an idea, just try. Just try, as Chris already mentioned. Just give it a go. It might be worth the investment. And you might end up with some very useful insights or pleasant surprises. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Should I mention like one of the rules? Should I make it Portugal language? No.
That's what's on the website.
No, just joking. That was pretty funny, and I knew that guy would say the word. That was you, right? Yeah, I knew that was the only one who was brave enough. Guys, do you have any questions? Yes, there is one question here, another here.
Hi, it's me again. I have a question. What's your approach, and what's the approach of the company you work for towards localization practices that border on censorship? For example, in Polish, some companies, for example, Microsoft, in their marketing materials for some of their software, like removed a black guy from the picture. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
For example, we have marketing materials that feature people of different skin colors. And some companies take the approach in Poland of taking another photo with only white people, right? To reflect the fact that it's a homogeneous society. And the other thing is towards like more sensitive cultural content, like LGBT rights. For example, taking the photo of a gay family and replacing it with a photo of like guy and a woman and their child. So what's the approach of your company to that? And or maybe you don't have to answer that, but what do you think of this topic?
Yeah, talking about LGBT, not sure if I entirely understood the whole concept of the question, but we sometimes, basically, if we see some content is not okay for a certain market, we simply don't produce it. That's option number one. Or we don't promote it so much. For example, just LGBT, we had like May 17, a Norwegian National Day, which was celebrated together with the LGBT Day in Norway. So it was a big thing where we changed the colors of the logo and everything. But for sure, there are some countries, without mentioning them now, where we didn't put this on the front page, and we also didn't change the logo, but we did it for most, and it was quite good. And there's for sure many other topics like this where you have to be a bit more careful and just not promote it or write it a bit differently if needed. But still stay to your values, because that's just what Norway is. We'll not say that in Norway we are all straight or something, right? So that's just how it is. Huh?
Mm-hmm. And how did you guys research what is a sensitive topic in a given country? Is this, do you get some trainings, for example, in this, or do you just do the research yourself, like read web pages and?
We do it both. Basically, we do both of the things you just mentioned, but also we're all of us are in touch with the local office. So Visit Norway has local offices all across Europe, and we're in close connection with them as well when creating the content. So if we have any questions or something, we just discuss it with them, basically. Because I mean, we live here, so we lost the touch a little bit. But they still live there, so they sometimes have a better idea about that. So then we just contact them and discuss things with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And there was one more question from Anton, right? Yes.
Hi, I'm Anton. Thanks for this presentation. I really like that because I could identify with a lot of the struggles you went through and how you solved them at the end. So I had a question about the second portion where you talked about you create this English source text, you give it to your text editors, then some magic happens and you create this inflated version, which then essentially becomes the source for the localized versions or transcreated versions. So can you talk a little bit more about the magic, and if you actually create an inflated document? Is this more like in the part of the discussion where you just increase the overall understanding of the text for your editors so they better know what they're supposed to do, what the output should look like?
It's absolutely not formalized or anything. It's not that we create different documents with extra comments or something. We just, sometimes it's just a sentence that is not clear, and then we discuss it in the team, what should we do here? And sometimes, because there's always one editor who notices something, and sometimes this can influence other language versions as well. And sometimes it comes even to the point that the English text is changed. Sometimes we just say, well, sorry guys, but this is not clear. Like, we just need to rewrite that. So it's a bit of an interaction, actually, between all the different versions.
Yeah, so in a way, it's that communication within the team that is that magic?
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
One last question.
Hello, I'm Katarzyna from Electrolux, and I have a short question because I didn't catch it. If the editors are translators as well, or you have a separate translation agency?
No, the editors are translators as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Everything in one: publishing, translating, writing, analytics, search engine optimization, the whole program, basically.
Yep.
Okay. Let's hope when they're okay. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experiences at Making Waves. It was really nice to have you.
Thanks for having us.